Hello, and welcome to the Live Blissed Out podcast, helping demystify decision making so you can get unstuck and take action. I'm your host, Marissa Houston, bringing you another blissful episode. Hi, action takers. This is episode 3 of the Live Blissed Out podcast. Thanks for joining me. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice. Our topic for this episode is publishing a book, and my guest is Donna Sylvester. As a registered nurse, Donna entered the Army Nurse Corps in 1970 and retired 22 years later as a lieutenant colonel. The economic downturn created an opportunity for her to consider some different options for creating income. After 39 years in traditional jobs, when many of her peers were retiring, she decided to step into becoming an entrepreneur and made a commitment to becoming a key leader in the network marketing industry. With 9 years of experience under her belt, she published a book, Deal Your Own Cards, 10 Skills to Building a Winning Hand. This book is a milestone in Donna's journey as an entrepreneur. Donna has been with Send Out Cards for 9 years and has sent over 8,000 cards in that time. Hi, Donna. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Marissa. How about you?
Fantastic. Now that I get to chat with you, I am just so excited to have you as a guest on my show.
It has been so fun to watch you get this podcast set up that I'm just really excited about experiencing what it's like to be part of your podcast group.
Me too. I tell you, I learn from every guest that comes on. And it's just so much fun because not only do I learn, but it also feels great to be able to help people who are listening learn as well. And so it's become a nice little community. And I'm just so excited to get this going.
Well, you've certainly been organized about it, so I'm impressed with your process.
Thank you, Donna. Well, I wanted to talk to you today about publishing a book because I know that that has been a journey that you've been able to accomplish. I know that it's something you were thinking about for a while. And I want to get a better understanding from you about what motivated you, first of all, to want to publish a book. And then how did you go about the process? Was it something that you did right away or did it take you time? And so I would like to know more about your journey. And in the process, I'd love the listeners to get more insight in terms of what they need to do so that they can do the same.
You know, writing comes pretty easily for me. It always has. And people have told me for years that I needed to write a book. And my answer was always, I don't really have anything to write a book about. However, a couple of years ago, I had this thought that it would be helpful to have something in writing to pass on to new people that were going to join my team and send out cards. And I'm such an avid learner. I read a lot of business books. I attend a lot of workshops, and I love passing that information along to people. And I thought, wow, I think I'll work on creating what I thought of at the time as a workbook for new people in the business. I wish that I could remember exactly what prompted me to sit down one night, but I sat down and 4 chapters just kind of spilled out of my head about why I am interested in the network marketing industry, why I think it's a powerful business model, and what were the things that got in my way as I stepped foot into that industry, because it's a little different than stepping foot into a traditional business. And so I just felt really compelled to help people be more confident about how to answer questions about the industry. So I wrote the first 4 chapters and took them in to my coach at the time. I think this was probably spring of 2017, and showed them to him, and he looked at them and he said, Donna, this is gold. You have no idea what you have in your hands here. If you will finish this project, it will be so powerful for you in terms of being able to attract new team members, because people will really appreciate coming into a system that's well established, a system where they know exactly what to do. So that's how it got started back in spring of 2017. With his encouragement, because truly I didn't have any idea the impact that the book would have on my team building efforts.
Now, did you intend to write a book before then and then put it off? Or was it one of those things where you got it in your head and just decided you were going to give it a go? And then through his encouragement, you forged ahead?
That's a really good question. I had not really thought about writing a book before. As I said, that one night I sat down and just kind of churned out 4 chapters of what I thought would be a workbook. And it was really Danny's encouragement and his perspective on the power of having a book available that made me want to take it further. However, I have to say that he really was encouraging, and that was spring of 2017. And those 4 chapters sat unattended to and unexamined again and unexpanded on until fall of 2018. So there was quite a dead period between when he said, you need to move forward on this, and my decision to actually move forward on it.
And why do you think that is? What stopped you from just going ahead with it? Why did you wait longer than you wanted to?
Well, first off, I was busy. All of us are. I guess there are some people who maybe are doing something in their life where they have plenty of time that they can just carve out big blocks of time to write a book or, do some daily writing. But that was not me. I mean, I already had a full day every day. So even though I had been given a clear vision as to why I ought to finish it, that wasn't really powerful enough to help me set aside the time to actually make that happen.
And so when you started finishing it and you were working on your book finally and you gave it the time and attention that it needed, did it somehow give you more awareness about yourself and your goals and direction? And did it kind of help you visualize things better? Because sometimes a lot of us, I know I experience it when I put things down on paper, it helps me see things that I normally didn't see before.
I think for me, what it helped me really understand is how important accountability is to me. I don't know that that's true for everybody, but I've really learned about myself over this last couple of years that for me to execute something, accountability is an essential structure. And so what got this book back on track was that in fall of 2018, I enrolled in a coaching program, a 90-day program, where I had to create a professional goal. And that goal was then monitored weekly, 3 times a week by a coach, and then weekly by my entire coaching group, which was 17 people, who I had to stand up in front of and say how I was coming along on my goals, one of which was the book. And the deadline for completing that goal was December the 14th. And with that structure in place and that system where people were asking me multiple times a week, how are you doing on that book? How's that coming? Where do you need help? How can I support you? I was able to just say, you know what? I just got to find a way to carve out some time to work on this. And for me, that turned out to be evenings. I'm quite a night owl, and I quite honestly had to set some other things aside in order to carve out the time to actually work on the book. And I don't know that I would have gotten it done without that system of accountability and that structure, that time deadline to make it happen.
I guess we all get to the stage where it's easier to just get whatever it is we need done rather than having to answer to everybody asking about it. Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
You get to the point where everybody's coming to you going, Donna, how's that coming along? And then you're like, okay, I don't want to answer this question anymore. I might as well just get it done.
Right.
I could totally relate to that. I understand that completely. Okay, so you now have the accountability. You know what you're going to be talking about, and you're writing along. You got the papers in your hands. How do you know where to go, what types of options there are? What was the next step that you took?
So I had those first 4 chapters done, and now I'm in a coaching program where I've got to flesh out the rest of the book. And a good friend and business coach, Pam Lippitt, as I was discussing with her how to approach eating the rest of the elephant, she said, don't go back and rehash what you've already done. Look first to get the new material into written form. That really helped me because I could have spent days and hours rehashing and trying to make perfect the first 4 chapters. And perfection really is an obstacle for a lot of people that are writing. They want to make each paragraph and each page and each chapter perfect. And what I really learned from her and that process was, don't make your first efforts about making it perfect. The first effort is to get what's in your head onto the page. So I did that. I just let what I wanted to say flow onto the page. And then after I got what I wanted to say out onto the page, I went back and added some pieces of data that I got from Google research and fleshed it out a bit. But I think it really helped me to focus first on getting my own ideas onto the page without worrying about whether it was absolutely perfect.
We are so hard on ourselves. And a lot of times it's a jumble in our heads. I think what happens is we have mind clutter and we have so much information. And rather than just getting it out so that then you can look at it and analyze it, we want everything to come out perfect. And then that in itself holds us back. So it just makes so much more sense to put it out there and then reevaluate and then make whatever tweaks you need to make.
Yeah, it was really helpful to me. On December the 14th, I had a completed draft. And in January, I began thinking to myself, well, I've got this draft. Now what do I do? I hadn't really thought about what the next steps were. And so I wrote a goal for myself that I wanted to get the book published by May when I was going to be going to a conference in Dallas. And I don't know if you believe in synchronicity or not, but in early February, I was calling a list of people that I was going to be sending some cards to. And one of them was a gal named Andrea Costantine from My Word Publishing. And I really had no idea what My Word Publishing was. So when I got her on the phone and asked her what it was, and she told me that they are a group of resources that helps authors get their book into published form, I thought, wow, that was the exact resource I needed, and it showed up at exactly the right time. And so I met with Andrea, got some information from her about what are the next steps in publishing. And frankly, I really didn't look any further than that. I was so comfortable with what she discussed and the professionalism with which she came across that I took the contract she gave me home, reviewed it, thought about it. She told me that she thought she could meet my timeline, which was, this is early February, and I wanted to take my rough draft and have it in hard copy by May the 30th. She said we could do that, and so I took her up on it, and I would do that again. It was really, really a good decision.
So in other words, the process was a lot easier by obtaining professional support because they can give you the big picture and cover everything from A to Z in terms of what you needed to get done.
Yep, I definitely would recommend that if you're a new author, you want to get some support like that. As I look at it in retrospect, I think, well, it might have a little bit to do with your goal in publishing a book. You know, some people just have something of a personal nature, that a memoir or a here's how I lived through this experience, or those kind of books where for them it's more a journey of heart, getting something really important to them in a written format. For me, I was creating a book that I wanted to be a resource in the professional community. And so for me, it was really, really important that it look good, that it be edited. I mean, there are people that edit their own book, do their own layout. You can go to Kindle Direct Publishing and you can do a complete do-it-yourself job of uploading your document into a format and creating your own layout, designing your own title. You can take it from A to Z on your own. I really felt like because this was going to be a book in the professional community, I wanted to make sure that the first impression was a good one.
Do you feel that there is a difference between offering a hard copy version versus a digital? Do you believe in both? What's your take on that?
You know, that's a good question. I have friends who absolutely won't read a digital book because they like the feel of a book in their hands. And my book is a how-to book where my hope is that people would put notes in the margin about how they were going to do the things I was recommending. So I really felt like I needed to have this be a hard copy book. Since that time, I've had a number of people ask me if they could get it in ebook format. And once you have it in hard copy, the ebook format is only like $125 to convert it from hard copy to the ebook format. And so that process is underway, and I would estimate within the next few weeks, there will be a digital version of Deal Your Own Cards for the people that want it in that format.
As you're saying, once you have the book, you can convert it to ebook, but it's much harder to do the other way.
I have to confess, I don't know exactly what it would be like to go from ebook to a hard copy, because I guess if you do that, you have to get it edited and you have to create a cover and all that kind of stuff. So it would seem to me easier to go from hard copy to the digital version if you want to have both available. I mean, there are people that only publish a digital version.
And like you said, they can start with digital if they just want to get their feet wet, put something out there, and then go the other route. Or, as you mentioned, go full hard copy. And then if you decide you want to add on the digital version, you can do that.
I'm imagining that that would be the truth.
Now, in terms of getting the support that you needed, you mentioned this publishing company helped you. Is there a tip that you would give to listeners who don't know a particular publishing company and they're looking at all kinds of resources out there? How do they know who to trust and what to consider? Are there any things you particularly looked for when you made your decision?
You know, I have a really important tip for people that are thinking about using a publishing company that I didn't know at the time, so I feel very blessed that I didn't bump into this challenge. But there are some publishing companies out there that will help you get your book to market, and they market themselves as a very comprehensive, we'll help you create it, design it, lay it out, edit it, we'll help you get it to market, we'll help you market the book. What's buried in the small print is that they own the book, and that book is published through them and can only be published with them. So the people that use that route cannot put their book onto a platform like Amazon. And for me, having this book available on Amazon has made it so easy for people to get their hands on it that I would not have been happy if I'd gotten down the line and realized I couldn't put the book on Amazon. The strongest recommendation would be to make certain that whatever company you use, that you still own the full rights to your own book to make whatever changes you want to make in it and publish it on whatever platform you choose to use. That's a huge obstacle. And I have a couple of friends who have gotten stuck there. They wrote a book through a company like that, and now they'd like to do something different with the book, and their hands are tied.
It's one of those things they don't realize until they're knee deep in the process. And then they go, I only wish I knew. And they didn't know to even ask about that because it's not something that they even considered was an option or something that they had to ensure was part of the process with whomever they were working with.
Right. I didn't know to ask that question. So that's why I say I just feel so fortunate to have bumped into the person and the company that I did, because I certainly could have very easily gone down the other path. Now that I've published a book, I get stuff almost daily about free workshop. We can help you get your book published into market in 90 days. There's just all kinds of offers out there to help people get their thoughts into a book and get it to market. And I would not have known to ask that question.
That's a hidden thing that if the listeners would at least be aware of, they would be able to confirm that before they move forward with the process. In relation to marketing and promoting your book, I know that you've done various launches and they were very successful. You have so many connections and people who really respect you and supported you 100%. So in your launch, you were able to sign the books, take pictures, and really promote what you were trying to communicate to the people that know you and care about you. Do you have any other resources or tips to help people who decide they want to go this route in terms of how they can get more exposure?
Deal your own cards. The primary audience for that book is people who are building a send out cards business, because the book is basically about how to build a send out cards business. About 70% of the book would be applicable to anyone building a network marketing business in any industry. So my first and foremost task is to figure out how to get the book to the send out cards market. And one of the ways I've done that is I have sent books out to some of the leaders that I know in the company who are building a big team. So part of my exposure has been offering the book to other leaders to let them know that it's available and see how it may fit their new affiliates in their teams. I've created a landing page for the book and intend to create some blog content on that landing page. And then I have not completed it yet, but my third way to market is going to be to have a Facebook group where I can get into some of the skills that are in the book and expand them a little further with more specific strategies and information that I think will help people execute the various skills that are in the book.
You're saying know your audience and provide value and get them engaged and create a community so that not only are you giving them tools that they appreciate and will utilize, but then you're ongoing giving them opportunities to engage with each other and be a part of that so that they can grow with the information that they're learning.
Yeah, that was a great summary, Marissa. I think engagement's the key word. It's like if I can succeed in building this Facebook community of people who are using the skills in the book and they can contribute, okay, here's how I invited someone to take a look at send out cards, or here's how I followed up with someone in a way that was successful, so that people are actually sharing the ideas about how they're using the material in the book. If you can get readers engaged in that way, I think that it will really help each reader and it will help exposure for the book.
A book is a tool just like any other. Podcasting is one. Going on YouTube is another. There are many different ways that we utilize to share information, provide value, engage people in our community. How does somebody decide on which platform to go with? How did you know that the book was where you wanted to take it?
You know, that's a challenging question for me that I know more after the fact than I did when I started. My initial thought was to create an easier way for me to pass information along to new team members. And to do that, I could have created a spiral bound notebook. I could have created a workbook. I chose to do the book because of what Danny Ballard told me about the power of having a book available. And then I went to a workshop by Angel Tussey called Media Exposure Boot Camp. And the book that I had published came out on Thursday, and then I went to her workshop on Saturday of that same week. And she said in the workshop that the number one way to gain media exposure is to write a book. And she talked about the value of getting your name in front of people in ways that do it more than just one-on-one meeting. Things like this podcast, the opportunity that you're giving to your podcasters to be a part of your podcast community and get their name in front of a larger audience. And then beyond that would be interviews on radio and television. And having a book sets you apart in a big way from many of the other people that are in your field, no matter what your field is. And it also gives you access to media exposure that can really accelerate the degree to which people know who you are and seek to use your products. And for many people, I hope this will turn out to be the key for me as well. Having a book is a way to get in front of groups to speak. And actually, their goal in having a book is more about speaking than it is in whatever money they make from publishing the book. For me, the book was a route to making it easier for people to join my team because I've made it easier for them to know what to do.
I also think that it's really important to be aware of what your expectations are and then find the medium that will fit that. So, for example, I think all of these mediums are wonderful and books are very powerful, but a book is a tool that allows you to put something out there and then it's done. It's written, it's finished. You don't typically edit a book unless you put out a second or third version. So, when it's completed, you're able to share it, and it's not something you have to do all the time. You're not going to publish a book every week. Whereas with podcasting, people always ask me, what about podcasting? You know, what should I be thinking about? And I say to them, the number one thing that you need to consider is that it doesn't stop. You have to keep doing it. And it's a completely different process from publishing a book. And so what fits you and your end game is what you need to be thinking about. And a lot of times people don't consider those things until they get into it. And then they go, oh my goodness, I never even thought of that.
I can see the distinction you're making, and I agree. It's a great point that the different mediums are more appropriate for certain situations than others, for sure.
Yes, and I think the bottom line is really to focus on building a community. And that's what it's about. It's giving value and building a community of people that can benefit from all of the experience and resources that you've already done for them. So, like you mentioned earlier, you go through a lot of trainings, a lot of coachings, you invest a lot of time and energy in the research that you do, and you're putting it out there to help them so they don't have to go through all of those steps again and repeat the cycle. You've kind of already identified what you found to be true for you, and you're trying to share that with your audience. And that is golden. And a book is just such an affordable way to get that information without having to make the kind of investment in time and money that you have.
It brings to mind another tip I could offer to your listeners. I think one of the things that holds a lot of people back from doing a book is that they think it's a really overwhelming task. And I'm going to go back to Angel Tussey's workshop again. She talked about how the best length for a book is 100 pages because you can read that on an airplane. And she suggested to us that we think of a title and come up with 10 subheadings under that title and create 10 chapters of 10 pages each. And she suggested that we probably have more than 50% of that content already on our computers. And when you really boil writing a book down to that, what topic do I have that I'm either passionate about, excited about, have a message about, have something that I want to share about, that I could create 10 chapters of 10 pages each. Writing a book is not really that difficult. And then if you get professional help in putting final product together with editing and layout and title and all that, it wasn't inexpensive to get that help. I would say probably between $3,000 and $4,000 to get the level of help that I chose to use. But the process itself is really not that overwhelming if you shrink down the size of what you're thinking about doing. We're not going to write the next version of War and Peace. We're writing a readable reference that somebody can easily go through and get the message that we want them to get.
It's even easier, as you pointed out, for people when they're talking about things that they're passionate about, putting it down and then addressing each one a step at a time. We discourage ourselves because it seems so insurmountable. Just start where you are. And then every day you look at it and you go, my goodness, I have 5 more pages. And you're moving along. And of course, as you mentioned, if you set timelines and you also let the universe know, your friends and all the people in your sphere, let them know that, hey, I'm working towards this goal and my goal is to get it at this time, and try to be realistic with that, then you're more likely to achieve anything you set your mind to.
You know, Marissa, listening to you a year from now, I could imagine you doing just what I suggested. You did a presentation just recently where you did 10 different things that you need to think about when you do a podcast. You could turn that exact outline very easily into a book about how to build your own podcast once you have gone through a few months of it, and you can add some experience to the topics that you presented in that presentation.
You're right. It's really about experience. And I also think that people let fear get in the way of them moving ahead. And what you kind of have to do is just decide that you want to achieve that goal, and that goal is the most important thing. Address that, set that aside, and just say, you know what? If I let those limiting beliefs stop me, I'm never going to achieve that goal. And I want that goal really badly. And so I think that you got to that point when you decided to publish your book. And I did the same with the podcast. So I think that the ingredients, so to speak, are very similar. It's just that the mediums that we decided to go with are completely different.
Right.
Have you ever used a self-publishing platform?
Well, that is exactly how I did this book. I had to create my own publishing company. And once I created my own publishing company, then I published my book through that publishing company. And what that means when you self-publish your book is that the book is available in a print-on-demand format through Kindle Direct Publishing, which is the platform that I used. Kindle Direct is the new name for Create Space, which is part of the Amazon system. And so with Kindle Direct Publishing, you upload your book onto their platform, and then as people order the book, they print a copy of the book. So if someone goes to Amazon and buys it, a copy is printed and sent out to them. If I go to Kindle Direct and I order 10 copies to have for myself that I could give to new team members, for example, Kindle sends me 10 copies, they print 10 and send me 10. The real advantage to that, which was just huge for me is that, let's say Send Out Cards makes a change in some major aspect. I can go into Kindle Direct and change a page or a paragraph or a chapter of the book, and that change is effective immediately, so that from whatever date I make that change, every copy of the book that's printed after that has the new material in it. So I thought that gave me a lot of flexibility in an industry where changes occur really frequently.
That's a game changer. And I think especially for listeners who are thinking of publishing a book for business, and if they're utilizing or communicating information that changes quickly, then in essence, it's an editable book.
Right. I don't have to have hundreds of copies printed and ready to go for people that just sit on bookshelves. It's kind of an ecologically conservative approach as well, which I really love.
Yeah, it's as needed.
Right.
And it actually kind of reminds me of the Send Out Cards process as well, because Send Out Cards prints cards every time you make a new one. They print it on demand. And so it kind of works the same way, except with a book, you can edit chapters and you can edit particular information that changes as the programs change.
It was a really important feature for me to know that I could go back and change content very easily.
Donna, this has been so helpful. I know you're very busy, and it means so much that you were able to come on and help our listeners get a good perspective about what you've experienced. And I think it's so valuable to talk to you about it because you're coming to it from the eyes of somebody who actually did it and experienced it, and not from a place of talking to a publisher or somebody that's expert in the field. It's really coming from the viewpoint of the consumer and the listeners in this case who are considering doing this and not really understanding what they should be thinking about.
Well, thanks, Marissa. I appreciate your heartfelt remarks, and I just appreciate being a part of your podcast community. I think you're bringing great value by helping people see easy, doable ways to turn their intentions into actions. You're going to build a big community, and you're going to be very successful with what you're doing, and I just appreciate being part of it.
Thank you, Donna. I appreciate you too. Thanks for being on the show.
You're welcome.
That's all for this episode of Live Blissed Out. Thanks for listening, and thank you to Donna Sylvester for joining me today and for sharing tips on publishing a book. Join us again next week for another informative and motivational show. Please visit liveblисsedout.com for access to all our podcasts and resources, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you find value in our show, please leave an honest review either on the website or on Apple Podcast. Plus, if you haven't done so yet, join our Facebook community at facebook.com/groups/LBO podcast. It's a great place to engage. So long for now, and remember to keep moving forward.